Okay, thank you. So welcome to the Clean Network call today. I'm Tamara Ledley. I'm going to be facilitating our conversation. Before we get to our featured speakers for today, I'd like to ask if there's any announcements people would like to share. Jim?
Yes, hi, Tamara. Is my mic coming in? I was kind of messed up on things.
Yep, no, I can hear you.
So let's see. Well, a couple ones of reporting in from the STEM for All video showcase, which is ending today. It's been on for 8 days. 267 federally funded programs with a STEM focus, sharing their videos and a lot of discussion. A couple of the programs that I think are likely to be future Clean Network presentations is one is a Turk program, Innovate to Mitigate, that have been very, at the end have been very wanting to make sure they call attention that kind of like that, Tamara worked with Turk and,
Yes.
they're very proud of you, right? And for good reason. But
Thank
they've
you.
been doing great work about Innovate to Mitigate. I mean, they wanted everybody to know, Turk and Tamara work together, that, and you started Clean and all the, or one of the founders of Clean. So anyway, looking to see about, of course, we'll go through all the proper process and make sure people are okay with it. But I think they would make a great presentation. Another one is by almost a factor of 100, the most popular of the presentations is a thing that they're summarizing as being learning through observation and pitching in. And I think the thing I could say about it is it gets 300,000 visitors, and it's just totally abuzz with things. And the thing is, they're seeing that our program is as an application of what they do. But I think one of the things we can see about it is it's actually applying culturally the way in which education classically takes place in the indigenous America's indigenous cultures, the Mexican culture, and actually as we're seeing people chime in from all sorts of cultures all around the world where it isn't lecture and test, it is more a family and a cult and a village and a culture where people where young people learn, and they learn by volunteering or just taking part of the community. So it's a really big subject there, and I think they would make a great presentation about because I know we're not just about saying it, we're about doing it of learning and practicing indigenous knowledge. The other one, if you don't mind, I would just say of being able to climate action, not just climate action plans, but climate action taking place in California. We're bringing back what was pioneered in Washington, D.C. and Maryland is the BART system. So Eric, you would know well, our subway or rapid transit, but anyway, the train system that runs throughout the Bay Area, a partnership with them and us to, they've really been taking off on how young people can help make their system more energy efficient, particularly the lighting. And so we're bringing in also, or they're bringing into the picture, one of the biggest manufacturers of lighting fixtures and light bulbs, light lamps, as they're called technically, who are going to be doing the retrofit, and they're very excited. So it's quite a partnership that's just been, we're getting back. We met one of the directors of the BART system at an Earth Day, and they came back with us. So just a thing of students taking real action on climate change, but now really being recognized by professionals in the field. So thank you for letting me take the time here.
Okay, thank you. Eric?
Thanks, Tamara, for hosting today, and thanks for the chance for a quick announcement. We're also going to be offering in the Bay Area a 2-day Climate Institute, August 1st and 2nd. So I'll paste in the chat the link to that. But a lot of the themes are kind of resonating with what we've been talking about over the last few years in Clean. So things like environmental justice, place-based learning, kind of looking at the Bay Area's sort of microclimates and California's climate specifically as a lens to understand climate change at large. So yeah, it's open to all educators. The focus is on environmental educators, but it's not necessarily formal educators only. It can be informal educators, folks that work at science museums or do other kinds of informal education work or community-based work. Jim, like what you're doing for sure. So yeah, please spread the word. And if anyone has any questions, shoot me an email. I'll throw my email in chat as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements? I'd like to make a quick one. It's just because I just came off of a webinar for the Wikipedia Education Project, and I've had the Wikipedia assignment in my class the past 2 semesters. And so it's an opportunity that I have, as most of you know, I teach global climate change to undergraduate business students. And I have them through this Wikipedia education project, which I'm not going to explain now, but if you're interested, you can contact me about it, in which students contribute to Wikipedia articles. And I have them contribute around climate change, but in articles that have a focus more on the business side. So for the business students, it makes it more relevant to them. And the webinar I just came from, which brought this, sort of, I thought I would share with you, is that it was discussions about projects in which they had their students not only talk about the topics that their classes were about, but to fill in gaps around equity. So focusing on women geoscientists or women in cultural settings that were different, not climate change courses. These courses cover a tremendous range. But anyway, it gets at equity issues also. It's very engaging for the students. So I'm happy to describe that to anybody who is interested. I will put my email in the chat. But I just wanted to let people know that that's an opportunity for you to get students engaging in climate change in how it intersects with other fields or other careers that they may go into. So any other announcements before we get to our featured speakers for today? Okay, thank you. So we are going to, we have some speakers who are going to be talking about some videos that they've produced around climate feedback loops. So we have Bonnie Walsh and Melanie Wallace, both are award-winning producers, directors, and writers for documentaries, and also contributing to media exhibits. And they have produced these videos, climate emergency feedback loops, that they are going to share with us today. And so Bonnie and Melanie, I'll let you introduce yourself further in the context of your presentation.
Thank you. I think Melanie's going to go first. So Melanie, do you want to jump in and I'll follow?
Sure. So my name is Melanie Wallace. I'm working on the Climate Feedback Loop project as the impact producer. And before this, I spent about 40 years working on the PBS NOVA Science series as the senior series producer. And I've made several films on climate change over the course of my career and have worked in documentaries, as Tamara has said. So just to give you a little brief background on the project that we're going to talk to you about today. The 5 short videos we call Climate Emergency, and they were launched in January of 2021. And we had the opportunity to launch them under the aegis of the Dalai Lama, who, of course, you know, is very concerned about climate change. And he set up this worldwide Zoom for us. And we were able to invite Greta to come. And this was her first opportunity to meet the Dalai Lama, which was very interesting for everybody who attended. And so we showed the films, and they told us, we showed some of the films and had a conversation with scientists, and we think about 1 million people showed up, which was quite a way to start this journey. And then we combined the 5 into a 1 hour for broadcast sales, and this was on PBS in December, and it was repeated again in April. And we were also lucky enough to get the film seen at COP26 in the fall, and we were invited to participate with His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, who had a few days of presentations for his group, which is called the Terra Carta Sustainable Markets Initiative. And so the film has been getting some traction, both the short ones and the long ones. And now Bonnie and I are dedicated to spending our time bringing them to the attention of educators around the world. And we're very thrilled to be able to share this with you and to brainstorm on how you can use these to the best of your ability. So now Bonnie will speak about the curriculum we have to share.
Yeah, thanks, Melanie. So yeah, we, as Melanie said, we have the 1 hour broadcast version, which is called Earth Emergency, that you can still watch on, you know, on the PBS Passport and Amazon channels, and you can even buy it, you know, on iTunes. But the 5 short films which were originally made, we have free up on a website, and we're really encouraging people to use them. There's no cost to educators. They're free. We have free discussion guides and a free science curriculum up there too. So we luckily have a client who funded this project, who is very, very committed to making these resources free. So that's the good news. And I want to present, I have a bunch of clips from the films that I want to show and go through our educational materials. But first, I'm curious, how many of you here are science educators for grades 6 through 12 or college students? Okay. And how many of you are with NGOs or community groups? Okay, great. All right, that's helpful because we have sort of 2 products, one geared for each. So let me share my screen and oops. Here we go. Okay, so are you all seeing this? Yes, okay,
Yep.
sorry. Okay, so this is what our website looks like. You can see the URL is just feedbackloopsclimate.com. And we got a nice little recommendation by Greta. And you'll see the introduction film is right here. It's a 13-minute film. And then if you scroll down, you'll see the other 4 films are here. We have forests, permafrost, atmosphere, and albedo. So we decided we would introduce the concept of feedback loops. And by the way, these are subtitled in 24 languages. So they're available for people around the world to use. So when you click any of these, the films play. You can see they're from about 8:45 to 14 minutes long. So they're perfect for schools, for kids, really for any age. And then if you click down here, you click on educational materials, and this is where our products are. So we have each discussion guide as a separate guide in case your community group or school is showing one film and you want one discussion guide. And then we have a complete discussion guide where we compiled all 5 of them together into one document. And this one's a little nicer graphically. It was more graphically designed by this company, Journeys in Film, which put together our science curriculum. So you see, if you scroll down, you'll see there's some nice, images and our feedback loops and discussion questions. And then we have a lot of links to other resources. So you could use this for college students or for community members or NGOs or anything that doesn't require a science standard, core curriculum. So that's the discussion guides, and they're all here. And then this is our educational curriculum guide. And this is the one that is geared toward science classes. Journeys in Film is a great company that makes these kinds of educational curriculum guides around documentary films. And they've done, Melanie, do you remember some of the films they've done? They've done some big films.
Not offhand, no.
Off the top of my head, but they have some great clients. So you'll see we have the lessons according to the 4 topics: forest, permafrost, atmosphere, and albedo. And then we have a 5th one about regreening the earth, which is one to give people activities about what they can do, action steps, and provide some hope. So I'm gonna first show you a clip from our forest film to give you an idea of what this is about, what the film looks like. I'm gonna skip the intro film until the very end, where I'm gonna show you the ending of it. So here's a little clip of the forest. Let me know if you have trouble hearing this.
Since carbon dioxide warms the atmosphere, by removing it and storing
I
much
don't
of the
see
carbon.
I don't see the video. I just see your
Trunks,
educational
leaves.
guide.
Oh dear. Okay, I may have to switch. Thanks for telling me. I may have to switch what I'm sharing. So let me just back this up.
I could hear it, but I couldn't see it.
Okay. And by the way, that voice you hear, I meant to mention this, that voice you hear is Richard Gere, who is our narrator. Here we go. Now I see I have to go between screens. Okay, are you seeing that now?
Yes, I
Okay,
see
great.
trees.
I will try again.
Carbon dioxide warms the atmosphere. By removing it and storing much of the carbon safely away in their branches, trunks, leaves, roots, and soils, forests help cool the earth. In fact, every year, terrestrial ecosystems remove about 30% of fossil fuel emissions, and forests are responsible for most of that. But that percentage is decreasing as emissions increase, steadily raising Earth's temperature and threatening forests' ability to offset the warming.
We have warmed the Earth by a full degree and a little more, and forests are suffering increased hazards of fire as they get warm and dry, increased hazards of disease as they become vulnerable to insects, and dying as a result.
As trees die, they become part of a dangerous feedback loop kicked off by the warming. As the temperature rises, the climate becomes hotter and drier, and they fall prey to drought, fire, and insects. With fewer trees left, more heat-trapping gas remains in the atmosphere, raising the temperature higher, resulting in even more dieback. As trees burn and decay, the carbon they've locked away during their lifetime, what scientists call a carbon sink, is released back into the air.
It's entirely possible we reach a point where we're killing off forests much more rapidly than carbon can be fixed by forests. The net result then is to produce a feedback that's lethal.
Today, we have a choice. Allow trees to do their job and cool the planet, or jeopardize the forests we have. That's the path we're on right now. How we protect and manage forests will play a large role in determining our future.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the curriculum now. Are you seeing the curriculum again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that what's unique about our film series is that we really focus on feedback loops. We tell the story of what's happening in the climate through feedback loops, through 4 different systems: forest, permafrost, the Earth's poles, the Arctic and Antarctica, and through the atmosphere. And so every time we tell a story, we reprise the feedback loop graphic. So we're really trying to hammer in this idea of these feedback loops, that the warming is creating more warming. So that's really the lens through which we're presenting these stories. So I wanted to just show you now a little bit. I'm not going to go through all the curriculum with you. I just want to give you kind of an overview, and we'll start with the forests. So, we had a presentation that Journeys in Film gave to teachers through their American Federation of Teachers conference. So we had many hundreds of science teachers attend this webinar where they introduced our curriculum to teachers. So I'm actually going to sort of steal a little bit about what they talked about, because I'm a filmmaker, not a teacher. So I'll use what they talked about. And they said that this is a great example of using a film to teach about science in an impactful way, and introducing climate through the lens of diverse systems, engineering design, solutions-based thinking, and community resilience, advocacy, and hope. Each lesson can serve as a standalone entry point into climate, dialogue about climate, and each is science-oriented with humanities themes woven throughout. And each is organized with enduring understandings and essential questions, and begins with background notes for the teacher. We include details teachers might need, provide a lot of additional materials and resources, estimated amount of time and materials we needed for each lesson, the Common Core and next generation science standards for each lesson. So we have the step-by-step procedure addressed to the teacher, For questions for students, we provide answer cues for everything. So there are accompanying handouts, graphics, organizers, and other tools, both copy ready and in fields in case the students are working digitally. So for example, the tree lesson, I will walk you through that. We start with an introduction to feedback loops as part of Earth's climate story and recognize the role of forest systems in the climate crisis. And students get to examine degrees of forest health to learn about negative and positive feedback loops. They explore day jobs of trees as carbon sources and sinks. They engage with the journey of water vapor and CO2, photosynthesis, and transpiration. And then we have a wonderful hands-on component which introduces students to the structure and function of wood relative to the climate cycle. And it's a great way to explore basic microscopy and an introduction to science notebooking and journaling to foster observation and inquiry skills. So you'll see, when you go through this, there's all these, there are links, there are activities, there are handouts. We talk about the Common Core standards, the next generation science standards, materials you'll need. There's just a wealth of information here, all kinds of activities around photosynthesis and transpiration and trees and diagrams. So it's really, the whole thing is 130 pages. So there's just a wealth of material in here, including questions and lots of explanations. So does anyone have any questions so far that I can answer? It's all pretty clear. Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because you guys can get to it and download it. So what I'd like to do is now show another clip which introduces the idea of permafrost. So let me see if I can get that up. All right, are you seeing the screen? Okay, good. Here we go.
In the Northern Hemisphere, nearly 1/4 of the land is covered by an icy expanse called permafrost. Extending from the surface down thousands of feet, its soil contains billions of tons of carbon-rich plant and animal remains suspended in a perpetually frozen state. But now, with human activity warming the Arctic 2 to 3 times faster than the rest of the globe, this permafrost is starting to thaw. And alarmingly, it contains twice as much carbon as in the atmosphere today, and 3 times as much as in all the world's forests combined. As it thaws, microscopic animals called microbes that have been frozen for up to tens of thousands of years are waking up and feeding on the newly thawed carbon remains, emitting dangerous heat-trapping gases.
If we were to take all of the microbes on Earth, we'd find that they weigh probably 50 times more than all of the animals on Earth. Now, these microbes need to eat, and what they eat are the dead remains of plants and animals. And as a byproduct of feeding on that material, they produce carbon dioxide and methane.
To understand how warming temperatures accelerate microbial activity, you need to look no further than your own kitchen.
It's like having a chicken in your freezer. You take the chicken out, you put it on the counter, and it starts to thaw. And then you go away for the weekend, you forgot about the chicken that's on the counter, and you come back and the house smells and chicken's decomposed. That's what happens to the carbon that's in permafrost. It's fuel for microbes. As they're breaking it down and using that fuel, they're releasing greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere.
Driven by fossil fuel emissions raising the temperature in the Arctic, these microbes are amplifying the warming as the permafrost thaws by releasing more carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere and warming the climate even more in a self-perpetuating loop.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. So that introduces students to the idea of permafrost and how microbes digest the thawing carbon in the soil to produce carbon dioxide and methane. And so here, students can do simple experiments using household materials, examining the impact of thawing permafrost on the environment, the changes over time. They can simulate the effect of microbial decomposition and gas release on the permafrost landscape, bringing that thinking and work full circle. It's a great way to explore climate and expand learning through iterative design process around investigative design and process of inquiry. Assessment at the end focuses on regional and global effects of greenhouse gas emissions due to microbial decomposition and thawing permafrost. So they get a hands-on experience about that. So now I'm going to go to the next clip, which is from our atmosphere film. So hold on. Here we go. And in this film, we first talk about the water vapor feedback, how the warming climate is creating more water vapor in the air and how that's leading, it's not a feedback loop, but it's the consequence of that is more severe hurricanes. So we've just come out of that and now we're giving an explanation of the jet stream, what's happening to the jet stream. So I'll play that clip.
In addition to water vapor, another atmospheric feedback loop is creating extreme weather, this one involving the jet stream.
The jet stream is this river of wind high over our heads, up where the jets fly, that encircles the northern hemisphere. And that jet stream is responsible for creating pretty much all the weather that we experience in high over our heads, up where the jets fly, that encircles the northern hemisphere. And that jet stream is responsible for creating pretty much all the weather that we experience in this part of the world.
To illustrate, imagine a layer of air extending from the warm south to the cold north. Warm air expands, so the layer over the south rises up higher than the air over the north. If you sat on top of this layer of air in the south looking north, it would appear to slope downward. Because of gravity, the warm air higher up flows downhill, just like water flows down a mountain. This downward movement creates a south to north wind. But because the Earth is spinning, this wind gets turned to the east and becomes a west to east flow of wind. That's the jet stream. The greater the temperature difference between the north and south air masses, the faster and stronger the jet stream winds blow. Historically, Arctic air has been much colder than the air to the south, keeping the jet stream fairly straight with relatively small north-south meanders. But with the Arctic warming at 2 to 3 times the rate as the rest of the globe, that temperature differential has decreased. This weakens the jet stream winds, causing them to take larger swings north and south, which in turn impacts the weather.
This is the feedback loop. We're warming the Arctic, we're reducing the winds of the jet stream, we're seeing it take these bigger north-south swings, which then transfers even more heat from the south to the north into the Arctic, which makes it even warmer, which weakens the winds more, and it sets up this vicious cycle. The perception for all of us on the ground here is that it feels like our weather is getting stuck in one pattern for a long time.
Okay, so that, let me just close that. One sec. Queue up the next one. So that is the atmosphere one, and this video teaches students about kind of what's going on in the climate through the lens of the weather and the atmosphere. What's neat about this lesson is they have an extension activity for students interested in engaging with real-time climate science in other parts of the world. There's a really cool digital tool called Carbon Brief. Some of you may already be using this. It's a powerful interactive digital map app with awesome layer of data showcasing different extreme weather events around the globe, so students can explore that in addition to the lessons and activities in this part. So And the last part of the atmosphere lesson offers students to engage with youth activists fighting against climate change and get them to start thinking about their own power and exploring ways of elevating their own voices in their own community. So in a lot of these lessons, we try to have the students bring it back to their own communities and what's happening in their own region. Okay, the next clip I'm going to show, hopefully this is the right one. Yep, is from the film called Albedo. This is going to be the first couple minutes in that film.
For tens of thousands of years, the delicate balance of Earth's climate has allowed human life on our planet to thrive. Today, that equilibrium is at risk as one of the most important cooling mechanisms, the albedo effect, or Earth's reflectivity, is threatened. At Earth's poles, snow and ice reflect up to 85% of the sun's rays away from the surface and back into space, helping to keep the planet from becoming too hot. But over the past few decades, this natural mirror has begun to break down as fossil fuel emissions raise temperatures, melt snow and ice cover, and reduce the planet's albedo. As the planet loses its ability to reflect sunlight, a dangerous warming feedback loop is triggered. The most alarming change is happening in the far north, where the temperature rise is causing the snow cover and sea ice to rapidly disappear. Don Perovich is a sea ice geophysicist at Dartmouth College. For the past 30 years, he's been documenting big changes in the Arctic.
There's always been this annual cycle. The ice grows, usually say for 9 or 10 months of the year, and then melts for a couple of months. What's changing now is the timing. The melting is starting earlier, the freezing is starting later. We have much less coverage every month of the year, particularly at the end of summer.
Global warming from human-caused emissions of heat-trapping gases, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and others, is increasing the temperature in the Arctic 2 to 3 times faster than the rest of the planet. Warming is then amplified by the loss of albedo as the reflective ice and snow disappear, exposing the dark ocean underneath.
Say it's April and we're flying above the Arctic and we look down at the sea ice cover. It's covered by snow. It's bright and it's white. Now, summer comes, that snow melts, you get more open ocean, you're absorbing much more heat. Instead of reflecting 85%, you're absorbing 90%. And so you're replacing one of the best natural reflectors, snow, with one of the worst, the open ocean.
Now, instead of reflecting the sunlight, the ocean absorbs it, heats up, and melts more ice, exposing more dark ocean, which absorbs more sunlight in an amplifying cycle.
Okay, that's the albedo one. And for this lesson, it kind of brings students up to a slightly higher level where they can actually conduct their own investigations that explore the science of the albedo effect. There's a completely student-led activity where they consider the variables that need to be brought into the design, choose materials accordingly, pitch their ideas, and move on to testing once the designs are approved by the teacher. And it gives students complete design agency. It creates a space in which knowledge, choice, and confidence converge, which is where the most powerful science learning can transpire. So that's that. And I'm going to show you one final clip, and it's the ending of the introduction film. And I'm showing you this to go with the last lesson, which is about regreening and taking action and hope. So here is the final clip, which is the ending of our introduction film.
Where we are now is like driving in a car in a dense fog, and you know there's a cliff out there somewhere, but you don't know where. Do you want to be going 60 miles an hour, or should you be going about 10 miles an hour?
Today we have a choice. If we take our foot off the accelerator, stop deforestation, and regreen the earth, we can reverse the feedback loops and begin to cool the planet.
And the solution is to make that transition away from fossil fuels and into a new green earth. And it really does require a green earth.
I'm encouraged by the fact that other countries have decarbonized their electricity sector in 10 to 12 years. So I know we can do it. And those countries that did it, by the way, grew their economies rapidly while doing it. But we have to put the incentives in place.
Even with meaningful incentives, it's going to take a while for the climate to recover.
Even if we stopped emitting carbon right now, it will take thousands of years for the system naturally to go back to what was before we started messing around with it. If we keep going industrially at the same rate we are now, we will have succeeded in roughly tripling the carbon dioxide content of the atmosphere over its pre-industrial value by the end of the century.
We have the technology and knowledge to solve the problem, to stop and reverse the feedback loops. But we need leaders who understand the urgency of getting it done and an energized public to advocate for change. It's not going to be easy. We've let the problem go on too long.
That isn't to say, though, that we shouldn't do everything we can possibly do to slow down our emissions, because we'll make it that much better for our kids and grandkids in the future. The problems won't be quite as big. The warming won't be quite as strong.
The Earth will be just fine. We may take along with us, unfortunately, lots of different species, but there have been catastrophic extinctions of species in the past. I'm not worried about the planet, I'm worried about us.
Every great change throughout history has come from the people. We do not have to wait. We can start the change right now. We, the people. Thank you.
Okay, I'll stop sharing. Okay, all right. I'm gonna stop sharing. There we go. Are we back? Can you hear me? Okay, good. I'm sorry about that. So those are the 5 clips, and you see this last one that I showed corresponds to the Regreening lesson, which is all about, what we can do. It introduces students to solutions. They consider the meaning of regreening the earth and investigate the root causes of climate change and consider what positive impact might look like in their community. So we really try to draw from relevant climate issues in a way that creates a space for them to explore the power of transformative action and give them hope. So those are the 5 lessons and clips from the 5 films. So I hope that gives you a sense of what we have to offer. And we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie and Melanie. So are there any questions?
There are a couple of questions in the chat too. Jim and Eric, I think we're chatting.
Well, Gina's looking. If you could look at for those, Gina, I'll ask a quick question here. Those lessons, how long is it anticipated it would take to do one of those lessons? Are they sort of designed for a class period or for a few weeks, or how is it?
Question. I think in the curriculum it says it gives a sense of how much time each activity will take, and some of it is in class activities and some of it is homework, so there's a variety.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Eric?
Thanks so much. Yeah, I really appreciate the visualizations. I could imagine using these to kind of contextualize some of the things that are happening, for example, in California, with the meandering jet stream. There's the Bay Area's rainfall has really been changing. I grew up here, I've been here for over 50 years, and you just see the onset of the rain coming. And then Jim and I were chatting about the idea sort of that you emphasized in your 5th video, this idea about positive feedback loops. And I think The challenge with students is, and sort of with the inertia that you're sort of presenting in a lot of the videos, is that change in their lifetimes, they will experience very likely continued change in the climate. So to sort of stay positive and stay focused on action that really are going to have implications, as the video suggests, for generations to come, you know, that they're improving. It's a hard message to send that you're making it less bad for them, because, you know what I mean? Ideal world is we're setting them up for a world where it's good. However, the reality is it is going to be a challenge. So I think that's the one we've been talking a lot in Clean about, how to navigate that conversation, about giving the real facts, the real sort of, and real is hard because we're in a place in time and our choices do have a huge impact on the future. We have all these scenarios and we are going to be here, 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 and they all involve change in the climate, change in the ecosystems. And it's hard. You can't promise anything, right? That's the truth of it, but you want to present sort of the opportunity for them to engage in the space in a positive way and feel empowered and feel resilient, you know, because as change comes, so I think telling stories of that's why I also appreciate video, is telling the stories of folks that are resilient and are adapting and are figuring out how to navigate essentially a different world. So just kind of, you know, figuring out, I think there's a lot of great resources, and I appreciate all the connections to the standards too, because educators really need that tie.
Yeah, I mean, these films really are telling this, they're really science films about feedback loops. They're really not presenting, you know, what people are doing to make the world better. That's just the angle we took. But I think it's really important to be honest with kids too. Like this idea, there's this huge myth about how you can just, you can cut down a tree and then you can just plant a tree to replace it. And that's a complete myth, because it takes 40 years for a tree to start storing carbon. So, I mean, even on airline websites, they say this flight will be offset by 10 trees we're going to plant. And it's just, you know, complete bullshit. So
I think one of the tools that I use is when I do these En-ROADS climate solutions workshops, is the last slide talks about how you going from the individual action to cultural change, and how individual actions individually by themselves don't amount to much. However, by engaging in those activities now, you begin to influence other people and begin to build a collective action that actually does lead to change. And that just all takes time.
And I think
that's the kind of message I try to send.
And that's why we chose to end the film with Greta saying, like, we, the people, we can cause a movement. We want to inspire people to cause a movement. We're not saying like, oh, recycle your water bottles and drive an EV car. We're not, we're saying join the movement. And in the other short films, we have similar endings. All the films end with kind of what you can do. And most of them are, vote for the right legislators, hold your policymakers accountable. They're big picture things. They're not on the individual level, because we know that's not going to change things enough.
Okay, thanks. Jim?
Yes, so I mean, first off, these are very powerful videos. Your project is very valuable. You're hitting the science well. It's important. It's extremely important for people to young and old to know about the feedback loops, because I mean, this is a lot how global warming, climate change happens. I mean, we said that's the way the Earth has gone through huge fluctuations. If we go way back, right, when the Earth was, as far as we know, as it once was covered with ice.
And that's in our
introduction. This,
that's in our intro, by the way.
Yeah, something would happen, and then it would just go and go and go, and then it took some other big change with the orbital paths and so on, where it could finally get back to it. I mean, this is the history of Earth. And I'm not getting into, it's all natural. That's not what I'm getting to. I'm just like, it's the old thing of like, the natural can be really powerful. You want to be really careful when you mess around with it, because feedback loops really kick in. So absolutely, these are very, very important. I think I would just, Eric and I think a lot of the folks here, if we're coming together in this call of people from different roles, right, and different things, it is encouraging partnerships. It's encouraging connecting, realizing that each of us, it's good that we are really good at certain aspects of what need to be covered. And you are really good at making really good videos with celebrities and people doing this. I mean, these are really outstanding videos. I think you would, I mean this to take this in a very positive way, that feedback loops are happening all over the place. They're happening scientifically, they're happening socially, they're happening everywhere. And it truly is. And maybe there's another one of recognizing that feedback loops are happening everywhere. You know, there's the old thing that people come around to really accepting something is real and making it real when they recognize this is not like this weird one-time thing, right? Positive feedback loops happen in nature and they happen in society constantly. We're just not often talking about them. We don't see them. So they're not, it's not like, oh, well, this is so out of the blue that, like, you know, I don't know if I believe it because I've never heard of it before, right? We know that in social movements, you need leaders to get started. It can be very small, but then it builds like a snowball. We also know as educators who deal with climate change, and every week we're here, all these people are here, we're dealing out in society, we're dealing with our students all. We know there's another feedback loop. There's a feedback loop that people keep hearing these terrible things that are very real that are happening with climate change. And they're hearing the feedback loop that the governments, the national governments aren't doing a damn thing. The oil companies are controlling them. The oil companies get what they want, and it goes in feedback loop, and feedback loop, and feedback. There's nothing we can do. It's all hopeless. And this is a huge feedback loop that's going on in the minds of children right now, that they are inheriting this is a world where nothing is being done, and in a world where they are being told they have no role except to complain and cry. They have no role. They can do nothing until maybe they're 30 and they work for some big corporation. Until then, they have nothing they can do. And that's the road to depression. And it's deliberate. It's deliberate. Our students who take action, we are being surgically attacked by major corporations to try to suppress the knowledge that students are taking action, because they are aware, whether other people are aware, they get it. It only takes a few programs with a few people showing that it's possible, and the snowball, the positive feedback loop starts kicking in. To us, it's a positive feedback loop. To them, it's like, okay, this undoes the depression. So I'm sorry I'm going on a bit, but I mean, I'm just encouraging. I'm not, if you all wanted to encourage young people to take really big action, not little stuff, not fooled about if you just plant a tree, because I agree, it's always planting a tree and we're doing fine. Yeah, and then we're losing 50 other trees that are 40 years old at the same time, and so it's all okay. That's nonsense. It's really bad. Wouldn't advocate that you all start doing a whole other thing. Please keep doing what you're doing. It's fantastic videos. Let's get them out. Let's do it. But partner and check with those that are working on the positive feedback loops. Have that connection. And I guess I would say too, I totally love Greta Thunberg. I think that's pretty close to the Swedish, and Greta Thunberg in the British, the anglicized version of how to say her name, if I get it right. Greta has done such a service, and her movement has done things. I don't think that what Greta is saying, which often it is that everything we must do is geared toward complaining and getting the government to do things, because that's a positive feedback loop to failure, because it's true. It's going to be the leadership's going to be from the students. It's going to be from the public doing things. So, but how do we have positive examples that do that? And I just encourage, I'm sorry I'm going on a bit, but I encourage to make the connections of the real serious change that is deliberately meant to make a positive feedback loop. And lastly, it would just be, because your videos are so important, I don't want to see them. What happens with a lot of the resources that come to Clean now is people are just overwhelmed with all the science saying all these negative things, and you're just going to be thrown in a box like all the others of like, I don't want to hear another depressing story. The kids don't want to hear it. They don't want to watch the video. If it's only that feedback loop that they associate with you. Okay. So please, this is meant to be, so your stuff is so good. It's got to be, it needs to wrap up with those that are doing great things too. Thank you.
Well, we are open to partnering. Thank you for all that. That's very good points. And we are very open to partnering with any organization, NGOs, community organizations, schools. You know, we've designed a lot of webinars virtually for all kinds of places. We just did a big one with Climate Reality Project about Massachusetts forests, where we had real action items for people to lobby for certain legislation and, really take action. So we're really looking for partners to do these kinds of webinars with. So please email us. Our email is on our website. So you can always send us a message if you have anyone you want to connect us with. We're totally open
thank
to
you.
it.
So let's get Carrie, you have a question?
Hi, yes, I'm Carrie Herndon. I'm with National Center for Science Education. I'm the curriculum specialist there. And I just first want to echo what everyone else has been saying. I think the videos are beautiful. I think the visualizations are amazing. I also think the content is being delivered in a way that's so easy to understand, especially for middle school students. I think it's just one more access point that's needed, that's really greatly needed. My question is, are there opportunities within the curriculum for the students to create their own physical models of the feedback loops that are shown in the videos? And my reason for asking is I think it would be, since the videos, connect and build, they could easily add in the different models together to build something much larger. And then they could, when they reach the regreening video, they could then visualize how these actions disrupt those feedback loops. And it makes it a little bit more hands-on. So I'm wondering if there's opportunities for that within the curriculum.
Yeah, it's a good, I'm looking it up right now. You're saying a physical model, not a abstract model.
So in the videos, you see those models of the feedback loops, and I'm wondering if there's opportunity for students to either, without seeing the visualizations in the models, in the videos for the higher level students, high schools, right? Try to build it and then compare to the video. What do we see in the video? And then actually pull those models together from the different videos to create one large model. And then disrupt it.
Yeah, it's a good question. I have to explore to see if that's included. Melanie, do you know off the top of your head? Well, I'll have to, you're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, I don't remember them talking about having created something hands-on for the students to actually engage with. But
physical model.
Yeah, physical model. But it's a great idea, and I think we could talk to them about that too. So Carrie, it's really nice to meet you, and I've been in touch with another colleague of yours at the NCSE to see if we could, create some partnerships. So I'd love to follow up with you as well.
That sounds great. Yeah, Lynn, when I told her that you would be
Lynn, Lynn.
She was very excited. So
great.
Oh, great. I was just going to send you a note in the chat, so we'll connect. Thank you.
I'm curious, Carrie, have you looked for this online? Like, have you Googled this and just seen if there's anything out there like that?
I know that there are, I'm thinking of the Berkeley Understanding Global Change, which allows students to build models of climate systems, not just climate systems, but all Earth systems. And that might be a tool. That's something that we have used in our curriculum, our climate change curriculum, but it's something that could be pulled in to be made much larger. And I love the idea of these videos serving as kind of a base point for that. And I don't know anyone who has something that extensive where the students are creating multiple models. Thank you, Gina, for putting that in the chat. And then pulling them together and showing how to disrupt it.
Well, we'll get in touch with Journeys in Film, who did the curriculum, and see if there's anything they can point us to. So that's a great idea.
Any other questions? Eric?
Do you all have plans to do another round of videos at COP27? Because I've been sort of thinking about a project. I had a video also showcased there last year, and it was kind of unpacking my own climate story. Deb Morrison helped to connect me with Digital Storytellers in Australia, which is another great video production company doing some great work. But I've been thinking about, since COP27 is happening in the Mediterranean basin, which has a similar climate to the Bay Area. Our climate's named after that zone with the cool, wet winters and warm, dry summers, kind of showcasing videos from different Mediterranean climate zones, and kind of with this flair of positivity and action based, so kind of taking your global visualizations and then bringing it down sort of to the local level. What's happening on the ground with folks that are experiencing these changes, and then what are they doing to sort of adapt and become resilient, but also to mitigate the problems, to reduce the emissions and create sort of a positive future. So just curious if you're going to do another round at COP27.
We don't have any plans to right now.
But it's not something it's something we're going to talk about. We don't have any plans now, but.
Great.
I just put our email in the chat because I'm not going to necessarily be able to absorb everything that's in the chat before call-ins. So please email us anything with any resources, info, video, organizations, or questions you have, and we'll certainly engage with you after this event. But yeah, we'd love to make more films. The funder who underwrote all this and is still underwriting us to do outreach activities like this. I think he's kind of done with making films right now. I think he's just, he's not ready to kind of go on to the next one. So, obviously we need funding to do it, and we don't have that lined up yet.
But there is a footnote. We've recently been able and invited to give our presentation to the Massachusetts State Legislature for the legislators, which is going to be happening in May. And Bonnie helped arrange that, which is very exciting.
Is that in person, or is that going to be virtual?
It's virtual. Virtual.
I would really be interested. I live in Massachusetts, and I'm really involved with the Blue Hill Observatory and Science Center, which is in Milton, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So I'd really like to be able to bring some of these resources. So if and the work around Massachusetts forests. So I would be
great.
interested in hearing of getting information about that.
Yeah, and Bill Muma is going to be one of our scientists there, which is great to have him speak directly to the legislators, which is
okay. That's great.
And tomorrow I can send you the link to the climate reality event we did around Massachusetts forests.
Okay.
If you missed it. So send us your email.
Okay, I'll put that in the chat here.
And then the other big thing that's happening is we were invited by Citizens Climate Lobby to have our film be part of their keynote presentation in Washington at their annual conference before they go to develop their plans to speak to their representatives. So that's another venue for helping to inspire people to take action.
And visit our website too for the events page has all kinds of links. Actually, that's where the link to the climate reality.
Okay, is that on the same link where the videos are?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
If you go to the events tab, you'll see all the links and events we're doing.
Okay.
And I was going to say, I don't know if the Massachusetts legislature one is open to the public. I'm trying to find that out.
Okay.
But we can bring Tamara with us. She's not public now. She's part of us.
Happy to.
But it's a good question,
All right.
Bonnie, but we'll see what we can do.
Okay, we are at the top of the atmosphere, at the top of the hour. Are there any last minute questions?
I just want to thank everybody for their attention and for bringing us in to talk to your community, and we hope this will continue because we are happy to
Absolutely.
be
Thank you so much for sharing. It's I have multiple venues. I mentioned the Blue Hill Observatory, but I also teach global climate change. So at the university. So I'll be thinking about how to use these there also.
Excellent.
Which university, Tamara?
Bentley University. So this is an undergraduate business school. So I really try to make understanding about climate change relevant to their business careers so that they can really bring that understanding to the decisions their eventual companies make.
So Tamara, we should speak with you more because we've been invited to make a presentation to the Bretton Woods group.
Okay.
And so maybe we should bring you along. That would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to reach business leaders and companies, of course, because they're such a huge piece of it. So any ins to that is fabulous. Thank you
Okay.
all so much.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next week. And as Gina said at the beginning, this was recorded and will be posted.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.